great MTS nutrition recipe. Today I'm going to make for you some standard chocolate chip cookies. So these are a great addition to your diet. I know for me, I have a sweet tooth, and if someone told me I couldn't eat sweets, I'd probably bitch slap them. So you have to find some good alternatives, and this is one of them. So let's get started. First thing you're going to want to do is preheat your oven to 325 degrees, and you're going to want a cookie sheet with some nonstick spray on it. What we're going to do is mix our wet ingredients separate from our dry ingredients. So let's get started with our dry ingredients. What I'm going to use today is the MTS Whey Vanilla Protein. This one is my favorite. You guys could alter this recipe and use whatever flavor protein you have on hand. It's just going to change the cookie a little bit, but either way, we're going to do 2 scoops of vanilla. I'm getting low on my vanilla. I'm using it in like every baking recipe. It's my favorite. So 2 scoops of vanilla. For flour today for this recipe, I'm going to use almond flour. This is truly just blanched almonds that are ground up. If you don't have almond flour on hand, you can substitute any other type of flour the same amount. I'm going to use 1 cup today of this almond flour. The reason why I like using this flour is it's a little bit lower in carbohydrates since it is just a ground up nut. A little bit higher in fat, but it is a good source of some vitamins, protein, fiber. So I just like to switch it up a little bit with what flour I use. Sometimes I use oat flour, sometimes I use coconut flour. Whatever you guys have on hand is fine. It'll just change the macronutrient composition a little bit from what I'm going to share with you. Okay, so about a cup of that. For sweetener today, I'm going to use Splenda, 2½ tablespoons. As always, use your sweetener of choice. I prefer Splenda. It's a little bit sweeter. Sometimes I use stevia. There are some carbohydrates in there you're going to need to count. But Splenda is very, very sweet, so you don't need to use as much of it. All right. We're going to do a ½ teaspoon of baking powder. And in a lot of baking recipes, it'll call for just a pinch of salt. Again, it just helps bring out the flavors. You don't have to add it. Use a little sea salt in there. I'm gonna give that a little mix. And there's all our dry ingredients. I'm gonna set that to the side. For wet ingredients, we're gonna use 1/4 cup of unsweetened applesauce. Applesauce can be used in a lot of baking recipes. It's basically a good substitute for using a lot of fat in your recipe. So instead of adding a ton of butter, using things like unsweetened applesauce or pumpkin can really help moisten up any of your baked goods without adding any fat. You gotta add something though, or else it's gonna taste dry as crap. It'll bake like cement and won't be good. Next, we're gonna add 2 whole eggs. I've got 2 large eggs here. We are going to use the yolk, so that is going to add a little fat. Again, if you don't like the macronutrient composition, you could play around with this a little bit. Maybe only use 1 egg yolk. Totally up to you. Use about 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I love vanilla, so I never measure it. I just kind of splash it in there. We're going to use 1/2 cup. I'm going to use the unsweetened almond milk. You can use any kind of milk you guys like. Okay. Alright, so I've got everything in there. I'm going to go ahead and mix this up. Okay, so I've got the wet ingredients all mixed up. I'm going to go ahead and add those right into the dry ingredients. Okay, so now that you've got all your ingredients blended together, your wet and your dry ingredients, I'm going to go ahead and add some chocolate chips. Today I'm using the mini semi-sweet chocolate chips because that's what I have at home. Go ahead and use whatever you like, and I'm going to go ahead and add 1/4 cup of those little guys in there. That'll go a long way. Okay. So now that you've got that all mixed in, what I'm going to do is go ahead, get my cookie tray here, spray it with some nonstick spray. That's wild. Okay. What I like to do to portion this out is usually just take a tablespoon. I think it makes it easier. Some people say scoop out like 1-inch cookies. I'm just going to do about a tablespoon. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I like using a tablespoon because it kind of keeps the size uniform. That way your nutritionals are more accurate. So I'm going to go ahead, get these all measured out onto my pan, and then we're going to bake these guys at 325 for about 15 to 20 minutes depending on your oven. I'll show you what they look like when they're all done. Alright guys, so my cookies came out in about 12 minutes. I like mine a little undercooked, so depending on how you like yours. I didn't want mine to get hard and crispy. I wanted them to stay nice and soft, which these did. What I want to let you know about with the almond meal, using that, it's a different type of flour, not as high in carbs, so the batter does come out a little less thick. They do rise though in the oven, and depending on how sweet you like your stuff, you may want to adjust the sweetness. These aren't too overly sweet. I am content as long as something has a little sweetness to it. I don't need it overly sweet, but again, try this recipe out and adjust it as you need to. These turned out really awesome. I wasn't sure how great they were going to be because I haven't normally cooked with almond meal, but you can tell they came out like a nice fluffy cookie, and the flavor is nice and light and sweet. Pretty delicious. Macros are not bad on these. These guys are about 5 fat, 5 carbs, 5 protein. So pretty easy to remember, about 90 calories per cookie. Again, you know what's going into these cookies. It's healthy ingredients to nourish your body. So pretty standard chocolate chip cookie by MTS Nutrition Recipe. I hope you guys give this a try. Please go subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and keep checking back for more recipe videos.